Hello, everyone. On September the 3rd, in the small hours, there's going to be the Virgo New Moon. And this particular new moon, the Sun-Moon conjunction, is quite unexpected. There are a few aspects, we are going to look at them, but really nothing is there. But the conjunction will be on Zosma, big star Zosma, which is the spine of the celestial lion. And it's quite an interesting star. The whole constellation Leo is about ruling, rulership, sovereignty. So it's quite an interesting thing. And if you look around, new moons and full moons are always effective ahead of time. So what happens is there's an exact date for the new moon, and 2 weeks earlier start it starts to affect the things, the space-time moment. And what happened during this period, two things happened. One was that, actually three. As we speak, I'm recording this a couple of days earlier, and in the EU, there is a meeting, an informal meeting of foreign ministers. And Joseph Borrell, who is the chief person for the EU for foreign affairs, who is an idiot and a warmonger, and he's adamant to trigger the Third World War and working and a really serious anti-Semite, I should say, which used to be a big sin. It's not anymore. Isn't that frightening you? I'm scared, to tell you the truth. I am scared because the shift of narrative goes towards something that is very, very similar to the 30s. So 90 years later, almost 100 years later, we are going to do the same. That's ridiculous. The whole thing is ridiculous. So that's one thing, that he's pushing for more weapons and the ability to actually use troops, all kinds of nonsense, ridiculous nonsense. That's one thing. The other thing is that the leader of Telegram, the owner of Telegram, was incarcerated, is the word, maybe just held up. As we speak, I think he is released, but he's taken into custody, and then this morning he was released, but he can't leave Paris. And Telegram is an interesting thing because it is the main channel of communication to many, many organizations, not less, how to say, first and foremost, yeah, for the Russian army. So that's quite interesting, and also for the CIA. That's also interesting. So obviously they probably wanted to push him to do something. We don't know. We will see. And the third thing was that the Ukrainian army broke into Russia and occupied I don't know how many square miles. It doesn't really matter. If you look at the map, okay, and you do the calculations, you will see that it doesn't matter at all. But actually, it showed how brave and how heroic the Ukrainian army is, which is a good point, which actually those who were not actually keen on the war now, again, are very keen on continuing it. Doesn't matter how many people will die, how much wealth and energy will be lost. And also, it doesn't matter if the people in Europe are going to be totally impoverished. And just to make you understand what's at stake, at the moment in Ukraine, they are only able to provide electricity for a couple of hours. Now, a modern city cannot function without electricity. Nothing works without electricity. Not the pump, not the water. There's no water. Okay, there's no sewage. You can't jumpstart your telephone, or you can't watch the news. You can't wash your clothes. Okay, there's nothing there. And as I'm recording this, it's the end of August, and so we are talking about the first autumn new moon in Virgo, and winter is coming. And how do you think the Ukrainian people are going to survive this winter without electricity? And we are still pushing them to continue the war, really. And I don't care if you say, oh, yeah, but what shall we do? Shall we allow the Russians to win? I don't care. I don't care for these questions. I'm only caring for manpower, people, children, human lives, and resources which are lost. And any other question is irrelevant, okay? And if you think that this war was unprovoked, which the mainstream media wants you to believe, then research truth. You will find it. And there was a very interesting 2-hour interview done by Tucker Carlson. I just watched it, bits and pieces, in which one of the experts explains how the West, and especially the United States, the Democrats, were trying to change the whole face of the world by allowing only one narrative and killing all the choices. So if they firmly believe that if you hear one narrative, there's one truth and one truth only. So they're just like the communists. Believe me, I lived in a communist country for 30 years. Half my life I spent in a communist country. You can't do it, okay? Because after a while, okay, for a little time, maybe stupid people will believe you. Okay, yes, you can actually put grandmothers, 90 or 80-year-old grandmothers into prison just by posting something on Facebook. This is happening in England at the moment, okay? You can do that. You can try to do that for a while. But let me tell you that this terror cannot be maintained. It could, at the maximum, was I think 70 years in the Soviet Union, but even there it ended. So how are you going to maintain this? I'm asking the powers that be. The only way to do it is by sheer force. I don't know. Let's hope that they won't succeed. Okay, let's take a look at the new moon chart. This is for London. And as you can see, it will occur on September the 3rd, 2:55 a.m. London time. And we have a Leo rising and this sun moon, which has very, very few aspects to anything else in the natal chart. Yes, admittedly, there is a trine to Ceres, but this is very wide to my taste, and really nothing else. There will be some so-called special aspects. We are going to look at them, but not yet. Okay, so here's Zosma. And fixed star Zosma is in the constellation Leo, and the whole constellation Leo is about sovereignty, rulership. This is where people learn to rule. And of course, something that I always tell my Leo clients, if you want to rule, if you want to become a sovereign, first you should be ruling yourself. And the title of this video is Fracturing and Healing. And these are very, very important concepts that are linked to each other, because unless you learn pain, you won't be able to feel pleasure. And unless you understand, realize, and acknowledge fracturing and all kinds of other damages, you won't be able to heal. So that's this typical Virgo new moon theme, and this specifically is about healing. And as you can see, Zosma is the spine of the celestial lion. This is where Hercules, when he's fighting the celestial lion, which is also the Nemean lion in the Greek myths, which is a special, unique animal. It has a fur that you cannot cut with normal weapons like a sword or a dagger or something like that. So any of the traditional masculine phallic weapons are non-working, not working at all. So actually, the way Hercules kills the lion is by going behind it somehow and then embracing it and then breaking its spine. So Zosma is where Hercules broke the spine of the celestial lion. And actually, it is a fixed star where we go after a very difficult life, where we could not rule properly, and also where we learn to acknowledge and understand defeat. So it's a very special fixed star. Let's take a look at the highlights of the this particular new moon. Here's the sun moon, and here's the Vesta and Trans Pluto. If you watched my previous video, it was about strong women. Here are the strong women. This actually it becomes they become exact with Venus in a couple of maybe 2 days, 2.5 days, but it's already there. So we are going to look at the, actually I'm not going to look at this because go and see my previous video. It's there. It explains it. But Vesta and Trans Pluto is focusing on channeling and dimension jump. Pallas Athena and Lilith, two strong independent women, and then Chiron and Aries are still very close to each other. They will slowly be separating, and then they are going to be conjunct again next year, which is so this conjunction, which denotes something. It happens every 51 years, and actually Aries is drastically altered out with circumstances, and Chiron is our karmic wounds, and in Aries it is wounds linked to war and aggression and violence and fire and firearms and things like that. So everything that is very negatively masculine as well. So those are the highlights. Now I promise you some aspects, but before we do that, let's take a look at the connection between pain and happiness. And in August 21, Anna Lemke, who is a United States psychiatrist, published a book, a very fascinating book. If you can get it, please get it and read it. Dopamine Nation, Finding Balance in the Age of Influence. That's the indulgence, sorry, indulgence. So that is the title. And this is what it says on the leaflet. This book explains the balance between pain and pleasure, and how pain can bring pleasure and pleasure can bring more pain, depending on how much pleasure you expose yourself to. By understanding the function of dopamine and how it is affected by too much pleasure, you may understand how to adapt your life to balance. And what she argues about is quite fascinating. She says that there's a whole generation, actually 2 or 3 generations now, who did not suffer the war and hardships. Of course, admittedly, there are poor people everywhere, and there are people who are undernourished and underprivileged. Yes, we know that. But as a generation, especially the Generation X and also generation, so the New Agers or the Z or the Millennials, they never actually suffered anything too badly. They grew up in relative peace and relative well-being and I would even say richness, and so they always crave for more. And here's the link between stress hormones and happiness hormones. The two main stress hormones, one is adrenaline and the other one is cortisol. And they work in a little bit different way, because adrenaline is the trigger. If there is a threat, there is something where you need a jump start. That is adrenaline. So you need to lift something, or you need to run for your life, or you need to have extreme courage to be able to fight someone. Then you get an adrenaline boost, sorry, and it spikes very quickly. It gives you this superhuman quality, but then it diminishes very quickly. It gets out of your system, and you get very, very tired afterwards, of course. But when you are under continuous stress, then cortisol is taking over, and cortisol is a deadly poison. First of all, it makes you fat. Adrenaline makes you thin because of these spikes. Okay, you simply burn your fat. But cortisol, actually, which is this continuous stress hormone, it means that if you are under a lot of pressure and the powers that be want you to be under a lot of pressure, then you develop cortisol. It makes you fat, and it also makes you old. So it shortens your lifespan, and it makes you sick, very, very sick. So it's really a poison. And opposed to these stress hormones, you have the happiness hormones. There are actually 4 of them. Serotonin, which is the natural painkiller of the body. So if you feel pain, then you will eat then you have endorphin. And this is why those people who like spicy food, for instance, uh, um, feel this endorphin. I just found out, I'm a spicy food eater, so I put paprika or chili in almost everything except for my daily coffee. And my older granddaughter, she also like loves spicy food. She was 3 years old when she started to eat ginger in the sushi. She loved ginger, and then slowly she developed. She started to love onion and garlic, and now she eats fresh garlic. Okay, it needs to be chopped and put on all her sandwiches and dishes, and she loves it. And she's about half a minute away from actually uh, uh, tasting chili. So she's now looking at it. And yeah, this is a natural way of boosting endorphin in your physical body because a sharp taste triggers endorphin. And so it's the natural thing. Now, serotonin, it maintains a communication between your cells, also between your neurons. So it gives you this well-being energy. Oxytocin is what we call the love hormone, and it has a great function in relaxing, how you relax. That is why when you're laboring, they give you oxytocin to kind of cool your nerves and when you have a lot of stress and a lot of um, cramps, they ease the cramps and they have childbirth very nicely. And also it helps you bonding, so it has a big effect in bonding between two people. And then we come to dopamine, which is the most dangerous of all, because that is giving you pleasure and all kinds of stuff. So this is the satisfaction hormone. This is the par excellence happiness hormone. And here's the problem, that you have dopamine receptors in your brain. And if your system is flooded with dopamine, after a while, these receptors die and you don't grow any more of them. So, in order to feel the same pleasure, the same satisfaction, you need to raise the impact. So that is why dopamine is responsible for most of the of all kinds of like drug abuse, alcohol abuse, all kinds of negative things in your life. And she argues, Anna Lemke argues that if you have a lot of dopamine in your system and then your receptors die, then you need to have a much higher impact of these substances, dangerous substances, and there's no limit to it. So finally, you burn yourself out completely, and that is why the elites have really strange and disgusting habits and cravings. That's one reason. So there is an antidote, of course, in a young age when you teach your children and your grandchildren to, for instance, love nature, to love animals, to find pleasure in work, in gardening, in walking. Um, and you talk to them and you don't put them in front of the TV or in front of a tablet, but you talk to them and tell tales and answer their questions. Then they will develop a much healthier attitude to life, and they don't need this craving. And that is one reason why this whole generation of kids cannot find any pleasure. They want everything now. They are completely impatient and they are always very dissatisfied. That's the reason. So when we go back to the main theme of this particular new moon, we can see that the new moon on Zosma teaches us to accept pain, but at the same time to find happiness and healing. And as I said, there are very few aspects to the new moon. And in the London chart, we do have this beautiful kite, a quintile kite. So with the ascendant, descendant, we have deciles and biquintiles. And there's also this mystical rectangle with the new moon, with Uranus and Mars. So actually, the London chart is quite fascinating. Uh, the quintile series is about ingeniousness. The decile is practicality, so everyday ingeniousness. Let's say that. The quintile is being ingenious, and the biquintile is ingeniousness that is developed throughout a whole incarnation cycle. So it's not just for one life, or it's not just for every day. The decile, 36 degrees, is for every day. 72 degrees, the quintile, is for this life. And the biquintile is for the whole incarnation cycle. So it's very, very powerful in the London chart. And when you look at this mystical rectangle, not mystic, mystical, because we have a biseptile. So actually, this triangle is made up by three very distinctly different aspects. The semisextile, which is the minor karmic aspect, okay, between Mars and Uranus. Mars and Uranus aspects are about free will, so you can exercise your free will, and they make an aspect with the sun and the moon. One is a quintile, ingeniousness, and one is a biseptile, which is mysticism. And actually, the septile, 51 degrees and 27 minutes, is 1/7 of a circle. It gives you mysticism, and the biseptile, which is about 103, not exactly, because it's actually 102 degrees and 54 minutes, almost 103. Actually, that gives you how the manifestation works. So you actually, it's not just mysticism, but understanding mysticism. And now this is the Uranus. So you can actually make changes in your life with this new moon. And Virgo is about putting things in order anyway. So you can put your life in order with this particular new moon. Let's hope this is what we can utilize. Okay, let's take a look at the transcendental celestial objects. And if you're here for the first time, there are three types of transcendental celestial objects in karmic astrology: asteroids, centaurs on TNOs, and all kinds of trans-Neptunian objects, and fixed stars, out of which TNOs, centaurs, and so these are trans-Neptunians, and asteroids, which orbit between Mars and Jupiter. Those are really part of the solar system, so part of the very human existence and human experience. And the asteroids are describing the personal karmic past, and centaur, which are always in purple or magenta, and the blue ones are the trans-Neptunians. They are describing our karmic wounds. And then fixed stars, which are not part of the solar system, they are out there in the universe. They are higher dimensional worlds where you can go and receive some sort of healing after a difficult incarnation, or you are preparing for one, and that's why you go there. The soul, which is a multi-dimensional entity, can go anywhere in the universe, and these are the worlds where it goes. So on the new moon, you have Gaia and Diomedes and Zosma. Zosma is a fixed star. We just looked at. Gaia, of course, is Mother Earth, and Diomedes is a fighter. There are many Diomedes in Greek mythology. One is, for instance, a hero in the Trojan War. Another one is the Thracian king who has man-eating horses. So it's a very masculine ruling archetype. That's on the new moon. On Gaia, which is a feminine mothering energy. So you have both a strong feminine and a strong masculine. On Mars, you have two fixed stars, Polaris and Betelgeuse. And let me show you. I think I included this drawing. So here's Mars at 28 degrees 56 Gemini, almost anaretic, moving into an anaretic position. And then in 2 days, it's moving into Cancer. This is the solstice, the summer solstice line. So it's 0 degrees Cancer. And as you can see, 3 fixed stars are very near, and 2 of them are now aligned with Mars. And you need to know that it cannot be conjunct. Nothing can be conjunct Betelgeuse or Polar, especially Polaris. Polaris is our current pole star. It's at 28 degrees 54. So Mars is almost exactly conjuncted, but not conjunct, aligned with it. And Betelgeuse is Alpha or Orion, which is the eastern shoulder of here's Orion, and it's the eastern shoulder of it. And this is a star which brings unlimited success, according to Bernadette Brady, who works with the fixed stars. So you can see that that's why we say aligned, because these stars can never be conjunct any planet. It's important for you to understand that they could be anywhere. So anyway, Mars is on Polaris and Betelgeuse, but not conjunct it. And Polaris is the pole star, so it is a dimension portal, and Betelgeuse brings you unlimited success. On Uranus, you have two TNOs, Alicanto and Lempo. I have video on Alicanto. You can watch it. And Lempo, I spoke about it many times. Alicanto is the soul's eternal yearning to go back to physical incarnation, and Lempo represents an archetype that whenever there is a new ideology or a new religion, then the old ideology, the old religion is demonized. And Lempo is such a demonized figure. He used to be a creator god and then became a demon for Finnish in Finnish mythology. And of course, Algol, which is considered to be a very negative star, but stars cannot bring anything negativity. You have to understand the stars are out there. They are not of the human existence or experience. They are higher dimensional worlds. The only reason they can act in a not so nice way is when we utilize them in a bad way. Okay, and Algol, actually the name Algol means demon, the demon star, is a word where the persecuted feminine is being healed. So it's a mystery school for the strong feminine. And it's on Uranus now, and it will be on Uranus for a while, for a couple of days and weeks still. On the ascendant of the London chart, and this is only for London, you have Atropos, the third of the fates, who is cutting the thread of life. And look around what is happening in England. They are just trying to establish this Orwellian new world. I mean, it's ridiculous, really, what's happening there. And mainstream media is not talking about it. They are hushing it up. It's terrible. And then Ramses, who was, of course, a dynasty creating pharaoh. So it's that's what's happening in England, actually. And also there's Altarf, beta Cancer. Altarf in Arabic means the stare, the how you stare, and actually it's insight. This is where we learn insight, which is the beta star of Cancer. And on the descendant, you have Freya, who is the fighting goddess, love and war goddess for the North in North mythology. So those are the transcendental objects of this very interesting quintile kite. Okay, I spoke about this. Hopefully you understand. By the way, here's the sun moon. So you can see that the sun is nearing the celestial equator. This is where it was 2.5 months earlier on the solstice. Unfortunately, we are getting closer to the dark side, the dark half of the year. And there's also a boomerang and a dissolved opposition. The boomerang is between the nodal axis, that is the angle of the axis of the boomerang, and the anchor point is the fourfold conjunction of Venus, Black Moon Lily, Juno, and the South Node. And the apex is the North Node, and we still have time to learn to fight what's due, what we need to, what we learn to fight what's ours, what is being threatened, and how we need to really learn to distinguish between meek obedience and fighting and accepting responsibility for our deeds. That's what the North Node in Aries is teaching us. And this little angel wing, which is the anchor point of the boomerang. Again, the fourfold conjunction. You can, if you want to see what this is, these are strong feminine. Of course, Venus is love goddess. The Black Moon Lilith is the third turning point of the little myth. It's the returning goddess, and Juno is the vibe archetype, the first lady archetype. And then Vesta and Trans-Pluto, another two strong feminine. Vesta is the high priestess and the focusing principle, and Trans-Pluto is dimension jump, and also she's Persephone in myths. So someone who is able to stay in two places, two worlds. And then Dark Moon Lilith, which is the middle turning point of the Lilith myth. This is the taking acceptance of the curse. when Lilith doesn't go back and Yahweh puts a curse on her. And it simply means that I will do whatever I want, whatever I feel right, and I don't care even if you curse me. That's the sextile between the two, actually the three archetypes. Okay, here are the transcendental objects. Again, they are color coded. And you have to understand. Take a close look at these lines here. Actually, Juno is the one which is around 7-8 degrees, and Venus is around 5.5 degrees. So it's actually more than 2.5 to 3 degrees between the two of them. Of course, Venus is the fastest of these celestial objects, so she will actually closing in, or she will be closing in on the two others. But because of that, Juno has separate transcendental objects, simply because the O for these is only 1 degree. So on Juno, you have Rhea, which is, of course, Cronus's wife. So it's a mother and, again, a first lady archetype. And Diana, who is the goddess of hunting and also the woods, so the forest. Two very strong feminine, but very diverse, of course. There's Raifonos, which is a centaur, and originally Raifonos is a sprite, and one of the 12 sprites who get the task to guard the cradle of Hercules. Zeus gives them this task, and in order to fulfill the task, Raifonos turns himself into a centaur, half a horse, half a human being. So Raifonos describes karmic wounds around complete transformation for the sake of a task or duty. And it's a beautiful centaur, actually. This is something that you sometimes do in life, and so sometimes it becomes necessary. And this is on Juno, which is the wife, which is the first lady archetype. And in order to remain in a marriage, in order to remain in a sacred union, you sometimes need to sacrifice yourself in the most interesting ways. And then Diadem, which is Alpha Coma Berenike, is the fixed star where our sacrifices are being gathered, or where we keep our sacrifices. Diadem is linked to Coma, but it's the alpha star of Coma Berenike, and Berenike, the story of Berenike, is about sacrifice. She wants her husband to come home from the war, and so she cuts her hair and puts it on the altar. It disappears, but the gods next night put Coma Berenike in the sky, showing her that they received the sacrifice, and yes, she was granted. So her wish, and her wife got home okay from the war. So Diadem is a place, if this is prominent, and I have a couple of people who have this fixed star very, very prominent in their charts. My very dear friend, Teresa and Anne, who are twins, they have it on their ascendant, and both of them are very much capable of sacrifices throughout their lives, and they do it very nicely, never flaunt it. That's where we keep our nice little sacrifices. And it's on Juno. And on the Lilith South Node Venus conjunction, you have three very strong figures: Nyx the Knight, Imhotep, a polymath, Egyptian polymath, and Merlin, the magician. On the North Node is Thetis, the sea goddess, a very, very strong feminine energy. And on Hygeia, which is putting things in order, creating a sacred space, being healthy at all times, has Demeter, another mothering archetype, another strong feminine. And on Dark Moon, you have Clio, the muse of history, Victoria, of course, someone who wins all the time. She's the goddess of victory, of course. And lastly is healing. So this has very, very strong healing properties, this particular chart. But that's it for the new moon. We do live in interesting times, which is the biggest Chinese curse. I keep saying that most of the time. Let's hope that Mr. Borrell, who is coming out of his nice little Adobe, so to speak, because he's no longer going to be the chief foreign affairs negotiator for the EU. He really goes down the drain, and the people of the EU will be able to withhold this crazy, crazy, idiotic war that we are being pushed into. Happy New Moon. Thank you for listening and watching. Bye-bye.